Hi everyone, so today we are joined by ABB and I'm really looking forward to this webinar. They are a fascinating global engineering company covering a wide range of different industries from electrification to robotics and automation and motion as well. So we're joined by Jackie, who's the head of talent, who will explain about who ABB is a little bit later on in the webinar. Again, we're really lucky to be joined by 4 grads at ABB who've got loads of different stories and different journeys to tell from their university past all the way through to their careers so far at ABB as well. Just to start with the introductions, we're joined by Jackie, who I've just mentioned, head of talent. Jackie and I have worked together now for quite a few years. Jackie, don't want to show our ages, but quite a few years now. And honestly, Jackie does not know I'm going to say this, but she is one of the nicest people I work with. She's such a people person. She's really enthusiastic about people, really passionate about ABB. So honestly, if I could choose, I know my boss watches this, I have to be careful, but if I could choose another boss to my boss, it would definitely be Jackie, because she's absolutely lovely.
You're very kind.
You are. It's true though, Jackie, it's true. I don't say this in every webinar. But Jackie and her team, Jackie's got a couple of people in her team as well, and they will hold your hand along the way if you are thinking of applying to ABB. So what we're going to do now is move on to the introductions to the grads. We're going to do a little bit differently today. So we're also going to just describe what their hobbies are as well. Now, I want to do this because I just think it's so important to get across, other extracurricular activities that you do. So it isn't just about what you're studying and what university you went to. Jackie and her team really want to know all about you as an individual as well. So what we're going to do is just touch on hobbies and interests, and then that will hopefully, from you as an audience, spur on different ideas about what you do in your spare time, and make sure you include those in your applications as well. So we're going to start with Sarah. I'm trying to find you on my screen. So Sarah is originally from Merseyside. Her hobbies are running and art. Sarah joined ABB in 2018 after studying mechanical. No, you didn't study mechanical. After studying chemical engineering. Sarah is now a process safety engineer at the Daresbury site in Cheshire. So thanks for joining us, Sarah.
Thank you.
Now to move on to Xiaotang. So you are from Jiangsu, is that how you say it?
Yeah.
Yes, I'm getting good at this. In China. Your hobbies are reading, movies and travelling. And you studied mechanical engineering, a little bit different again because you did a PhD with ABB and you finished that a year ago, and now you're a mechanical engineer at ABB. So thanks for joining us today. Yeah. Dan, on to you. So you are originally from Gloucestershire. Hobbies, I'm interested in this, but hobbies include swing dancing, jive and travel. What is swing dancing? I'm going to digress. What is that?
Sort of sort of like 20s, 30s and 40s, kind of Lindy Hop. It's kind of like fast sort of sociable dancing. So it's quite hard to do at the moment with coronavirus, obviously, but I got into it at uni actually. Loads of places to do it, like all over the country actually. Quite sort of sociable dancing as well. It's not like the sort of tango or like the waltz or anything where it's really sort of formal. It's just sort of fun. You can go to like events and sort of like dance with loads of people. So
is it a bit like Northern Soul?
No.
No, I wouldn't say it like that. No.
Jackie's just like no,
because I do that dancing.
Though, isn't it?
I do Northern Soul dancing, but I've also done what Dan's talking about. They are different.
Oh, I love a bit of Northern Soul. If you don't know what Northern Soul is, get on YouTube because it's really good to watch.
Do after the webinar, though. After the webinar.
Oh, after the webinar, yeah.
Oh, yeah. Not now.
Don't do that now.
Sorry, Dan, I digressed and you didn't know I was going to do that.
That's all right.
So Dan joined ABB in 2017 after studying chemical engineering again, and you now work as an engineer in measurements and analytics.
Yeah.
So Kanchan, on to you. So you're from Mumbai in India. Your hobbies are cycling and nature walking. You joined ABB in 2019 after finishing your Masters in Advanced Chemical Engineering, and you now work as a process engineer. So thanks everybody for joining us today. So I also thought it'd be really interesting when we spoke to the grads before to get together a couple of one-liners about why the grads wanted to join ABB in general. So it'll just give you a flavour about why they wanted to join before then we move on to Jackie and find out more about ABB in general. So why they wanted to join, to learn from the best and be part of a global leader, the opportunity to work in different sectors, to be involved in pioneering research, and I think this was you, Kanchan, but the graduate programme, from a technical and personal development point of view, it offered lots of different angles and perspectives. So,
yes,
perfect. So thanks very much, everybody, for that. Jackie, on to you, if I may. So from your point of view, I know ABB is quite a complex company, isn't it? If I may say that. You've got lots of different areas and everything else. So in your words, how would you describe who ABB is?
It's a very good question, and one where I always think, you know, if someone asks me out sort of in a, I don't know, a pub or a restaurant or something, you know, well, what do ABB do? It's really difficult to answer in one sentence because we're quite diverse in what we do. But we're basically an electrical engineering infrastructure company, but we actually manufacture kit as well as also being consulting engineers to industry. So we've got 4 divisions, and they're all slightly different, but we work with sort of architects, we work with the process industries, you know, in terms of and we work with manufacturing industries. So if you sort of, you know, try and describe what we do in one sentence, you couldn't, but we have you know, the need for electrification sort of for professionals, consulting engineers, also people who might work at more lower and medium voltage rather than high voltage electrical infrastructure. So we used to have high voltage as part of our portfolio, but that's sort of divested not so long ago. So we deal with that robotics, automation. So all those things encompass sort of what we do, but in one sentence, just can't describe it. Yeah.
Jackie, you once told a bit of a story about pretend you're looking out from your living room, for example, and the journey from the pylon all the way through into your home. And yeah. I think that gave, would you mind sharing that with the audience? Because I think that gave, it visualised it all to me. I think that was a really good example about how you described who ABB is.
Okay. Well, all right then. So what we would do is, before in the high voltage business that we used to run, we used to be involved with everything from a substation down to, if you like, the you know, in our homes you've got our distribution board. Okay. Yeah. So we can all relate to that. When we get power cut, we go in there and know all the time, right? Yeah. So that's basically the point. But if you imagine in a large factory, a school, warehouse, an arena, you know, that they have a large version of that basically that's fed in from the national grid into those places. So we actually design, if you like, the infrastructure that comes from that substation point or into the distribution board, be it on a very large scale or down to the consumer level. So but we because we're dealing with, I'll just give an example of Emirates Stadium, Arsenal Stadium. Not that I'm biased, I don't support football, so but that we design the infrastructure that goes into the Emirates Stadium. So we've designed, you know, like sort of everything, because it's a brand new stadium, you know, from the point of the power supply going into that stadium to, you know, powering all the kit, and also, you know, we know we're the people that design and make the invisible infrastructure, because you don't think about it, you don't even look at it, do you? No. You know, floodlights come on, you know, and basically how does that happen? So that's part of what we do. But if you think about all the consulting engineers that have to be involved with that, you know, someone has to sort of like, you know, not just design it, but also help to commission it. So that's why we're sort of we need all skill sets, and that's why from a recruitment point of view we need engineers that can do similar we've got some process engineers with us today, so they will do sort of very similar work with process engineering plant, which from sort of safety aspects to flow control to all sorts of things in that context. So they would be looking at being consultants to industry to make sure those plants are safe, that we have sort of adequate testing and also monitoring equipment in place. We've got control panels, we make control panels. I mean, you go on and on, but that is basically a bit of a sort of analogy as well. So yeah, the distribution board in the home is just part of it. It's just like a small example of what we do on a very, very big scale.
Yeah. Thanks, Jackie. I think it's interesting when you do walk around in my world. I've got so many logos in my mind for all the different employers who advertise with us, and when you see a logo like on a control panel, distribution panel, it's like, oh, ABB, they're one of mine. So yeah, exactly.
When you go to the game we used to play cards, when we used to, before the COVID days, we used to go onto campus or go to employer, offices and things like that. We used to be travelling down the M1 or wherever we were going. We do like every time we see one of our company names, we'll be like, there's ABB, there's all these different logos we used to shout, didn't we? That's silly. But yeah, it's funny because before you're in the world, you kind of you don't think about it, do you?
No.
What all these companies are doing and the infrastructure, and like you see now, and you look out your window and all these different companies are really passing us by and putting all this infrastructure and everything in place, and you don't think about it really, do you?
You don't notice it just happens.
No.
Well, this is why we're here, though, and this is why the webinars are here, just to get all your different messages across. Yeah, Jess, I remember when I went to London and you were making me take pictures of me stood next to all these different logos. I was just like a right one. Anyway, back to Jackie. So, Jackie, you mentioned the different roles available, but what type of role would a student be able to apply for at ABB?
Generally, what we would have is vacancies for electrical, electronic, software engineering, chemical engineering, mechanical engineering. I think that's more or less sort of the usual one, although we're actually branching into sort of different types, and certainly going more digital.
Yeah.
So that will become sort of a future need, really. But in general terms, even if you've just sort of you started off in any of those sort of disciplines, you could end up in a completely different sort of type of role further down the line because of the like become a project manager. So you've got an engineering background, but you become a project manager and you develop different skill sets. You might want to sort of go into management. So it's a starting point of a career journey. But those are the normal disciplines we recruit from.
Yeah, and I think as well, Jack, that was a myth that you wanted to bust, wasn't it? You're not just open to chemical engineers either. You're open to different disciplines. I know that's a point that you wanted to make as well.
Yeah, sure.
So your graduate programme then, before we go on to meet the grads, what makes the ABB graduate programme different to other programmes which are available to the students?
Yeah, I mean, it's a good question. And the grads might be able to articulate that by being part of those programs as well. But we have usually a cohort of probably higher numbers in previous years than this year. To be fair, COVID's had a big impact on that. But so say you've got a group of say 15 grads or 20 grads. It's quite a small group. Yeah. Compared to what sort of some our larger competitors could have, but that makes it more of a sort of more bespoke and more of a family sort of group as opposed to being lost in a sort of 100 grads being on a global program or whatever. So we tend to sort of nurture that group in a 2-year sort of program. And they sort of do things like outward bound sort of events in the Lake District, and I mean they will tell you about sort of their experiences on that program itself. But you can see sort of when at the very start when our grads walk in the door, if you like, to when they've been with us a couple of years, they are different people to me, and they're more confident, and also they've bonded with their peer group, you know, so that you've actually got, you know, that collective who have been working together, been given projects together, and you know, form bonds with, you know, the cohort group that they belong to. So it's not too big, and also it gives them a wide exposure to ABB sort of, and potentially ABB globally if they want to do that, because some grads that we had have moved on to sort of global careers or moved into worked in other countries as part of their development. So
yeah.
So generally, I think that's what I feel is different. Not forgetting that we do have a global programme as well, which is different to the UK one. And if you're on a global programme, it's more of a rotational programme.
Yeah.
So someone sort of could actually join on that programme, say in Spain, and do a part of the rotation, do a stint in the UK or Canada or China, or so there are global programmes as well that are run by sort of global, not myself.
Yeah, no, that's fantastic. Thanks, Jackie. And we'll also advertise all of the positions on GradCracker. So if anybody out there wants to apply, we're not currently open for opportunities, but we will be shortly. We're thinking, Jackie, that, you know, next couple of months, we're hoping.
We'll probably be, to be realistic, probably going to be definitely sort of say January, and it's so difficult to predict for next year what we're going to need. But the way around it as well is to open up a talent community. So in the absence of actually actual sight of the vacancies that we'll have, we can open up a talent community, in which case you can lodge your interest in ABB that way. By just being part of that, and you're sort of, you're consenting to us to hold your CV for the next sort of 12 months. So going into 2021, because we don't know, do we, at the moment, we've got your details, and then we'd ask you back then to probably answer a questionnaire to give us your, you know, where your areas of interest are, and particularly noting any work experience that you might have had on your CV. Really important, because even if it's not engineering work experience, you know, if you're, you know, if you've within your being a graduate, you know, typically you can be working in a you know, for a retailer. McDonald's is quite common, you know, but you know, this is what jobs that you would have, you know, whilst you're a graduate. But you'd be surprised how important they are, because one is you've actually gone into the world of work, and that's quite important. And depending what sort of type of role it is, if it's engineering orientated, great. But it doesn't matter if it isn't. It's like, you know, it's preferable if you've worked in an engineering environment, but it's not the be all and end all. You know, to actually have some work experience in retail means you've got customer skills, you know, customer service skills. Just, you know, we hadn't been in a customer facing environment, so it all matters.
Perfect. Thanks, Jackie. So yeah, obviously don't forget you can follow ABB on GradCracker as well to be alerted for when their opportunities do open, and we'll send you an email and push notification. We'll end with Jackie a little bit later on, but Jess, I'm going to hand over to you and the grads, and then we can speak in more detail about their journeys.
Brilliant, thank you, Carla. So Sarah, I'm going to start with you if that's okay. I know when we spoke just before the webinar, you were keen to discuss the misconceptions around ABB. I know Jackie's just explained who you are, but is there anything that you quickly wanted to add to that?
Yeah, I think Jackie covered it a little bit. I guess I just kind of wanted to say that when I applied to ABB, I was there on GradCracker looking through anything that accepted chemical engineers, and I applied to ABB, and I'd applied to loads of companies, and I had an offer already, and I didn't really know what ABB did. I thought of them as an electrical company that did robots and industrial automation, so I kind of applied to them, not quite fully knowing what the role would be. And I went through the application process and got to the assessment day, and then actually seeing the office and speaking to the people, I realised that in the consulting business, it was actually very chemical engineering, and it wasn't robotics at all. It was using a lot of my degree. And I think the thing is with ABB that it is so huge and they're in so many different sectors. You can't really judge what your role would be until you go through that process, and then you find out what it is you want to do. So I guess don't just think of ABB as an electrical company, or don't just think of them as doing chemical engineering or one thing or another. As Jackie kind of explained, it's very broad. So yeah, be open-minded when it comes to ABB. They are quite huge.
Yeah, brilliant. It's a good bit of advice there as well. So if we could kind of go back to the beginning for you, Sarah, if you could kind of tell me a bit more about the application process. Obviously, you found the role on GradCracker, fantastic, looking in the right place, and then you start putting your application in. How did that experience go for you?
So I found it very similar to the standard kind of application process. I think it was a CV and a cover letter. And then there was some online tests, maths and English. So the kind of thing that if you do the practice tests, I'm sure everyone's had come across these in other applications. It was all very standard. And then after that, there was an invitation to an assessment day. I'm not sure how this is going to work in the future with COVID, but that was kind of a few people, and you kind of had to debate something in a team and also show presentation skills, and they might have been going through the online test again, but it was just kind of a full-on day where you're in a room with different people applying for the same role, and you had to do kind of like a group project. And there were people assessing you throughout the day, and then there was the standard interview as well. Actually, as part of the interview was quite fun. It was like kind of technical. You were given kind of a P&ID almost, so a drawing, and you had to kind of explain what safety features that was missing from that, and kind of just talk through it. So it was kind of technical, but they just wanted to see how you think. There was no right or wrong answer as such. So it's quite a mixed day on the assessment day. But it was nice to meet people and see what the role would actually be.
Yeah, definitely. So when you've mentioned that, preparation is key, but what kind of other hints and tips would you give to someone, the audience now thinking about applying to ABB potentially in January? What other advice would you give them?
I guess when it comes to the application itself, having a strong CV and cover letter, and talking about your other interests and how that fits in. The kind of standard approach for that, just keeping it broad, and whatever experience you may have, kind of fitting that into the role. So like Jackie was saying, with customer service, all that kind of thing.
Yeah.
But then when it comes to the assessment day, if you're ever in kind of one of those group situations, I think other people that have been involved in this would agree, the most important thing is to listen to others and draw people in, because they just want to see that you're a nice person that's easy to work with, and that you'll listen to people and bring their opinions into the group, but also voice your own. So it's not just about being the loudest. There was one guy on my day who didn't end up getting the job, who was just really annoying because he was just talking, and what he said just didn't make sense. And that's not what people want to see. So you just need to be just nice and friendly, but also make sure you're not too quiet. But it's not all about just blazing guns, whatever. Yeah, just being kind of nice and normal.
Just be normal.
Caption for the webinar: be nice and normal. Okay, so going on to, obviously you're successful, which is fantastic. You got through the application process, and now in the world of work, what does your role entail now? And tell us a bit about what life is like for you at the moment, Sarah.
Yeah, so at the minute I'm in the process safety team. So when I started, I was in kind of more process engineering, and I've moved across into process safety, which is actually a really good place to be in terms of the COVID, because safety is one of those things that hasn't stopped. So it's not like, in terms of other projects, they might be put on hold because, we don't know what's happening. But you can't really afford to put a pause on safety projects. So we've been really busy and been ongoing. Day to day, I'm in the consulting business, so we work a lot with clients. So depending on, there's a lot of waiting for information from clients. So sometimes it can be quite full on trying to meet a deadline, a financial deadline. And other times it can be a little bit, we're waiting for information. And in those times, there's plenty of other things to be cracking on with. I've also kind of just come off the graduate scheme. So recently been working on a graduate project, which other people might talk about a little bit as well. But on a day-to-day, I've kind of been working with one client in particularly, and helping them to just meet the legislative requirements around it's a chemical engineering process safety kind of role.
So I'm guessing at the moment you're working from home with the current
Yeah.
situation. So do you get to see your team much? Do you still get to interact with them? Are you still getting that kind of connection with everyone in your team? How's that looking for you at the moment?
So initially when we started working from home, our manager, so Kanchan was in the same team as me, so she might speak up as well. We've had like a 9 o'clock meeting every morning, which I found really, really useful, just to see people's faces and just even as like a small chat, and just to see how other people are getting on and learn from each other, to try and recreate that office environment. Because as a graduate, you take it for granted how useful it is to just turn around and ask what people are doing, or someone can quickly help you with something. So we kind of kicked off COVID with having this morning meeting, but we're quite heavily involved on Teams, so constantly ringing people up and having that face-to-face contact with people in the team. So it hasn't been too bad. I have missed the office a little bit, but it's the new normal now, I suppose.
Yeah. It's again a good bit of advice there. You know, everyone at the moment, we're all kind of going through this new norm and being at home, being a bit restricted, but asking questions is still really key. You know, even if you're going, the students that are listening now might be first year of university or even in the final year. So I know it's kind of odd for everyone, but asking questions again and reaching out to people and creating those networks still is still really important. So if you can, make sure you do that. So kind of moving on to development, sorry. I know your development at ABB includes this Excel program. So can you tell us a bit more about what all the Excel program entails and how it works?
Okay, so when I applied to ABB, I'd never really heard of this Excel program. I was just working, and then I got an email one day inviting me to it. It was introduced a year above me, so it was I've been at ABB 2 years, so it's a relatively new program. Mm-hmm. And it's kind of aimed at, ABB have targets, and there was an email yesterday actually saying that they've got a target to have, I think, 30%, so double the number of female engineers in management positions. And as well as having these targets and these figures around diversity, they're working really hard to change misconceptions about female engineers and going into management. So there's this Excel program which is basically connecting all the female graduates from across Europe. Right. So I got to go to Germany, to Sweden, we had a virtual session as well. And we learned lots of things. It was kind of soft skills based, but learning about unconscious bias and why people might have the tendency to, and we do it ourselves, to associate with people of similar backgrounds, and all the barriers that can prevent female engineers in particular progressing to the higher levels in all engineering companies and all large companies really. And it's run by an external company, and it was just really fascinating, and it was nice to build that network with other female engineers across Europe. So I've got like a broader connection with people in different countries, which is really nice. But also just learning from tips and advice about, there was some leadership skills, and it was just nice to feel that ABB is actually really supporting this and not just saying these things, but actually actively investing in us. So that was really good, and that was across the 2 years, split up into 3 different sessions. And now I have like a Teams every month, have a chat with all the girls. And it's nice, it's quite interesting over COVID to see what's going on in Sweden and chat to all different people in different parts of the business. So it was just nice for networking, and that was a really good thing that I've been involved in.
That sounds fantastic. So in terms of where you're at now in your current position, is it right that you're on the path to becoming chartered? Is that your current plan at the moment? And I'm guessing ABB is helping you a lot with that.
Yeah, so that was one of my drivers for ending up choosing ABB as a company. In my bit of the business, pretty much everyone, all the engineers that I'm surrounded by are either chartered engineers, fellows of for IChemE, IMechE, or they're on the route to get there. Mm-hmm. So I'm in a fortunate position where, ABB are kind of pushing us to look at our competencies and write reports and send those through, just to keep a track of our work. But then also in reviews, I can identify areas that I'm kind of lacking a bit, and then push to get the experience to fill those gaps. Also, there's people around me that I've viewed their reports to get chartered, and there's a lot of support, and it's just the people around really that are kind of, it's nice to be in that environment where you feel like you can see the routes to getting chartered, because everyone around you has been, the other graduates that are above you have been through it.
Yeah, got that network of
Yeah.
support, which is nice. Great, well, thank you very much, Sarah. Dan, I'm going to move on to you next, if that's okay. Now, your role sounds a bit technical. For everyone that probably knows me, I am not technical. Yeah. So please, could you describe a bit about what you do and the impact that you have at ABB?
So I'm working in measurement and analytics in ABB Stonehouse. And so I sort of help the calibration of ABB's measurement sort of instrumentation that they produce. So things like flow meters, pH probes, turbidity probes, that kind of thing. It'll be, I guess the way I sort of impact would be to make sure that all the instrumentation that we produce is sort of accurate enough, it's to the standards that we follow, and I sort of keep production going efficiently on a sort of day-to-day basis.
And then what does your kind of day look like on a daily basis? So, you know, what's a typical day like for you?
It's kind of a blend really, because I'll be doing some ongoing projects where they'll be going over the course of a few months. I'll be sort of doing some programming, doing some research, that kind of thing. And then each day I'll sort of have somebody sort of contact me from the production line saying, hey, we've got this issue. Do you mind coming and having a look, doing some troubleshooting? So I'll sort of head down to the production line, work with the operators down there, sort of have a chat, sort of see what the issue is, help them sort of solve whatever's going on and sort of keep production ticking over. So I'm a graduate manufacturing engineer, so I think it's the manufacturing is where is my role really. It's keeping production going basically.
Yeah. So I'm guessing you'll have quite a lot of crossover then with other teams, will you?
Yeah, exactly. That's one of the things I actually really enjoy about this is I'm not just working with my team all the time. I'm working with the operators on the production line. I'll go and talk to D&D. I'll be talking with QA quite a lot because on the production line, we've got to keep everything to the standard.
Sure, yeah.
Yeah.
So it sounds like you have quite a bit of responsibility.
So I guess that's...
Well. Sorry, Dan, missed what you said.
Yeah, I'd say so. Me and my team do. Sorry?
So that sounds like you've got quite a lot of responsibility.
Yeah, I think manufacturing engineering does. The production engineers here, we sort of, a reasonable amount of responsibility. All of ABB's products are sort of certified by UCAS, which is the UK accreditation service. And so we've got to make sure that all the rigs that we're using, all the calibration rigs, they're running at the right flow rates, they're running for the right amount of time, all the accuracy that we're measuring to is correct so that we can sell them, we can tell our customers that the error, the tolerances, everything are perfect. And so, yeah, me and my team sort of make sure that all of our equipment is running perfectly like that. So that's our responsibility, yeah.
So in terms of the different projects you've worked on so far, what's been your favourite one that you've worked on?
I think probably the one I'm working on at the moment, actually.
Okay.
I'm helping to design this new calibration software. I'm quite sort of software based, actually. I did chemical engineering, but I'm kind of moving into software.
Okay.
For the production engineering team.
Right.
So I'm designing calibration software, and it's for an instrument called a turbidity probe. And I've never worked on them before. I've mostly been working on flow meters. I think that's why I'm enjoying it. It's because I'm working with a lot of people that I haven't worked with whilst I've been at ABB before. Learning about the turbidity probes, working with the design engineers, working with the operators, finding out more about this instrument so that I can design the software for it. I'm talking with the operators because they're the people who are going to be running the software, using it to do the calibration. And I'm kind of talking with them, finding out what they think would be good in calibration software, what they'd find useful if they're running it every single day.
Yeah.
Just finding out, and also I get the sort of the chance to run tests as I'm designing and as I'm programming every day. So this is definitely the most interesting thing I've worked on so far.
Could you have imagined yourself going into this kind of role? If, you know, you said you initially did chemical engineering, you know, when you first started the grad program, did you imagine your career, you know, so far taking the path it has? Not
really. I mean, with chemical engineering, there's always a sort of computer element to it, I suppose, but I never sort of realized I'd go into software this much. I'm using LabVIEW quite a lot. We learned a little bit about that at university. And I'm looking into getting certified in that. ABB might be paying for me to go and do a certification course on that and get some qualifications.
Oh, fantastic. Okay.
Yeah. And so, yeah, starting off here just with sort of graduate chemical engineering skills, I didn't realize I was going to go down the sort of software path, but I'm enjoying it, and I'm glad that I have sort of gone this direction.
So talking of training, and that was going to be one of my next questions actually. Obviously,
yeah.
Sarah, you kind of touched on a bit of the training that you have experienced. How does your training differ, if at all, to what Sarah experienced?
Probably the technical side of things.
Yeah.
I probably will have done quite a lot more software-based things. If Sarah, you're doing a more sort of chemical engineering-based, safety-based role, I'm doing a more software-based one. I guess a lot of the soft skills would have been the same. Presentation-based things, project management-based things, maybe. I've done very specific training in measurement of uncertainty. That's probably one of the most important ones I've done because of, like I mentioned, ABB's products being certified by UCAS, having to make sure that everything's calibrated to sort of very fine standards. I've requested training that I think would count towards my chartership. And ABB have been really good at sort of making, like, helping me arrange that, making sure that I can do the training that I want. I decided last year that I wanted to go on a pressure relief valve training course. I think that would sort of apply to my chemical engineering knowledge. And my line manager was perfectly happy to help me arrange that, help me sort of arrange the travel, arrange the transport to go on the course. And it's applied towards my chartership, essentially. So I think that's one of the best things about ABB is that if you want to do your own training, not just the training that the company needs you to do, it's quite easy to arrange that with the company, and they're perfectly happy to help you do your own training.
That's brilliant, isn't it? Fantastic. Well, thank you very much, Dan. Kanchan, I'm going to move on to you next, if that's okay. And if possible, I want to start back at the beginning, so your early experience of even going, coming to the UK, and you decided to study Imperial. So if you could just tell me, what made you initially come to Imperial?
So I did apply to many universities, not many, 7 universities in the US as well, and I got into 3 of them for chemical engineering masters. But then I got an email from Imperial College London.
Right.
So considering it a really prestigious university, and also the fact that the course which I applied to here, which is MSc in Advanced Chem Eng with biotechnology. So I specialized in biotech, which is hopefully the future. So I was really interested in that course, and hence that was one of the factors which made me change my decision to go to the US and come to the UK instead.
Brilliant. Okay. And in terms of, obviously you decided to do that, your career could have gone in any different way, couldn't it? To being where you are now, doing what you're doing now, looking back, you could have been doing something completely different. So how would you feel about it, looking back and kind of reminisce on where you are now and how far you've come?
I think it's been really adventurous experience. I mean, obviously I had many obstacles and challenges when I first came into the UK for my uni, but I'd say I had an advantage over the other international students because my dad lives here. I mean, he's been here for the past 10-15 years, of course, visiting us back home and us visiting him here in London. So I kind of had an overview of what the UK has to offer, obviously along with the terrible UK weather, which is very famous. So
up north, it's even worse up here.
I know.
Hey, you've got a bit of blue sky today.
Yeah, it's very surprising.
I feel like I'm actually, because the sun keeps coming in on me. I'm just making the most of it before it gets all rainy.
Yeah, absolutely. So that was one of a huge support, I would say, for my time through the uni. And I would say apart from that, other challenges were making new friends out of the uni, which I never made in London, unfortunately. And also, well, adapting to the curriculum and the style of writing their reports and everything, that was completely different as compared to what I did back in my university in Mumbai. So, but I think there were like similar people like me who were on the same journey as me, so we were kind of sailing through the same boat. So there was, we talked it out in teamworks and projects, and tried understanding and getting the best of the course. Obviously it was a 1-year course, so everything was cramped in one. You had one assignment deadline and the next just right after it, and so on. So it was kind of difficult, but it definitely leveraged me up and, upskilled me in a way of managing and organizing my things, which is obviously very helpful to me when I'm at work now. So that, I have definitely grown during my time in the UK, that's for sure. So it's a golden experience overall.
Definitely. So what initially kind of attracted you to ABB?
So as I was doing my MSc from Imperial College in London, we were taken through a tour in the carbon capture plant, which is installed by ABB, operated by ABB, and their control systems and stuff. So I initially had no idea that ABB was involved in process industries as well, because as mentioned by you, ABB is more into motion and electrical side of the things. So I had no idea that they do have a process safety, process engineering department. But then while I was applying and going through the different companies for looking out for graduate programs, I decided to also apply to ABB, of course. And the most appealing thing was that ABB does not only focus on oil and gas primarily, so it is into a varied number of sectors like pharmaceuticals, specialty chemicals, as well as renewable energy. And obviously that really amplified my interest in ABB. Also the variety of background, variety of people from different backgrounds and different levels of experience that I'd be getting to work with is really, which was important from my career perspective. That's what attracted me to apply to ABB.
Brilliant. So what does your role entail now, Kanchan?
So I am in the process safety department, same as Sarah. So I'm in the first year of my graduate program. So I am involved in doing a lot of risk assessments on sites and COMA reports as well. So COMA stands for Control of Major Accidents and Hazards. So I'm training in and around those areas. Also, sometimes I'm involved in hazard scribing, low-pass scribing for my seniors. Well, not only this, but the graduate program has a lot to offer, not only, technical aspects of things, but also personality development and leadership skills and trying and polishing them. So that's my overall role at the minute as a graduate.
So you've got another 2 years left on the program, is that right?
Another 1 year, actually. I mean, the span of the graduate program is basically 2 to 4 years. Obviously, it depends on when you get your chartership, because you're being trained through that too. So 2 to 4 years, I would say. And I'm first year through, and I'll be going into the second year now in November.
Are you enjoying it?
Yeah, it's very much fun. I mean, the fun activities and modules which have been organized by the HR throughout the past year. Obviously, it's very unfortunate that it's all become so virtual. You can't really go anywhere and have that social interaction, which is a part of the experience and is very important. But I've been receiving a lot of training on the graduate program, like Sarah mentioned about the Excel training. It was unfortunately all virtual. I couldn't go to Germany.
No.
So that was a drawback, but it was fun meeting other female graduates and knowing them. And we have these online chats on Teams and keeping in contact with them on WhatsApp. So it's really good for networking, I think.
Yeah.
And not only that, but the graduate program offers you to interact with and be in projects with other graduates from the UK as well. So for example, I just attended soft skills module training with other graduates around the UK. So from various departments, and not only my department, like process.
Mhm.
So it was really great. It was a really great session because it helped me reflect on my working style, and it was actually mirroring of what I'm doing and how I can be better. You know, the personality development side and leadership skill as well. So it was really helpful.
It sounds it. Well, thank you very much, Kanchan. Xiaotang, I'm going to move to you if that's okay. Last but certainly not least, can you kind of tell everyone where you are at the moment in terms of your career? Because I know nearly a year ago now you finished your PhD, which you did with ABB. So can you talk to us a bit about go back actually. Let's talk a bit about your PhD that you did with ABB and how that all came about.
Starting, so I'm gonna start with it's gonna be 5 years ago, I think, when I finished my master's also at Imperial. So I did my 5 year at Imperial with 1 year in industry, and then I did this master's project on ultrasonic flow meters with my supervisor.
Mm-hmm.
And then at the end of the project, my supervisor said, look, this opportunity that, you know, based on your master's project result, and ABB want to fund a PhD opportunity to a student that continue to do some research on this for another 4 years. So I said,
Wow,
okay,
right.
yeah, it's a fantastic opportunity. So
Yeah.
I took it and go on for 4 years, and things until last year.
Yep.
December, then we had a very long chat, actually with last May, or like 3 months before I graduate. We had a long chat about how I'm gonna fit in ABB and what the role is gonna be like in the future.
Mm.
And you know, it's kind of career chat, and then see whether we are both happy with each other.
Yeah.
And then I can continue being as a ABB employee in Stonehouse. So yeah.
Research then you did for during your 4-year PhD with ABB, is that now your kind of day job? Are you working on the research that you had kind of worked on, or what kind of, where are you at now with it all?
It's a bit different, and so obviously because of COVID-19 as well. So my topic is ultrasonic flow meters. So the ABB is actually a specialist of electromagnetic flow meters, which is both flow meters, but they're in different principle. And my sort of project, the intention 5 years ago of ABB was to actually to investigate and evaluate whether this is sort of a technology that they can take on as a part of their production line, and then their as in their product portfolio. And after 4 years of research, and then obviously we had like quarterly report evaluation of this technology. We said it's very good, but currently it's sort of it's a change of strategy. Maybe it's not too much to talk about that. It's a bit confidential. They said, yeah. So now it's more involved in their electromagnetic flow meters, but a lot of things that sort of can be learned from PhD can be applied on the actual job roles. So like simulation and all the experimental skills and the thinking and all the transferable skills. So I'm now working on a bit more wide range, like, so flow meter is belonging to all the instrumentational kind of process instrumentation area. So I'm also on working on analytical projects such as the gas analyzer and continuous water analysis.
Right.
The content is more about design and experimenting and design testing on the new product launch.
Can I ask what that product is?
Oh, it's currently the gas product is continuous gas. So it's to analyze the oxygen content in the field.
Right, I see.
Yeah.
So you've mentioned a kind of what you've achieved over the last 5 years. What's your 5-year plan going forward, and where can you see yourself being within ABB?
5 years time. Yeah, I was hoping that, because we discussed that because coming from school to industry is obviously very different. So we agreed that it's actually good for me to sort of do trainings along with other graduates, so that I get a feel of how industry will look like and the commercialization stuff. And then I think we said it would be really good if in the long term, in the future, that I could be in the role of sort of technical lead or consultancy that stands between the industry and academia research or corporate research, so that we can feed those very emerging technology into industry, into production. So that would be very exciting.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
If you were to kind of, if anyone's listening out there that, you know, are thinking of doing a PhD, what advice would you give them?
First of all, I think the absolutely essential thing to do is to finish your degree great. is to focus on your current project and make sure you do your master's project to a good level, because I mean that to be honest, that's your biggest opportunities with your supervisor to obtain a PhD, or it also at the same time prove that you have the research ability to proceed further with other projects with other supervisors. And I think, I mean, the other thing is ABB actually have a lot of links with the college, and you probably don't realize it because they're probably in the process of applying or setting up the project and still applying for the funding and doing some final documentation. At that time, they won't sort of advertise that out on the website. So I think reach out to the supervisors or your lecturers and finding out what they're involved with, because as far as I know, especially in the engineering field, PhD, the lecturers, they have a lot of links with industry. So they have a lot of this project coming on, especially with ABB, with like Ken mentioned, the carbon capture project. That's a huge project at Imperial, and they recruit a lot of PhDs. So I think to reach out and look out for those opportunities. But I mean, doing your own project good is the first thing to do. Also, the other way is you join ABB first. That's a very important step. And ABB is really sort of focused, and they really help you to achieve your personal goals. So in my department, so design and development, they help people achieve the master's degree and help people to achieve the part-time PhD. Now, it might take a long time, but I mean, if you are willing to do it, then I think ABB is willing to support for you for that, provided you have the opportunity to do that. But yeah, in that route, you need to first enter ABB.
Brilliant. Well, thanks, Xiao Tang, and welcome back, Dan. Thanks for joining us. Is he here?
Hi.
Hi.
Guys, I'm really sorry about that.
No, it's fine, don't you worry. So Jackie and Carla, I'm going to hand back to you guys, but thank you very much, everyone. That was a very detailed explanation of all the different roles you do. So thank you very much for that.
Thanks, Jess. Thanks, everybody. So, Jackie, I know we had a bit of, Q&A at the end to finish off the webinar, but I think, you've answered a lot of the questions that I had right at the beginning. But from an ABB perspective, what one thing would you look for in a graduate applying to ABB? What is the key thing that you want to see in an application?
Yeah, it's something that would differentiate you above your competition, really, which, if you imagine, we get a lot of applications. I remember at its peak one year we had 4,000 applications for our graduate roles, but that was a peak year. But we do get, it can go into sort of even a couple of thousand, or certainly several hundred. Depends how many roles we've got, of course. Yeah. But these are different times at the moment. We are actually seeing a surge of applications generally, not just graduate roles, just generally at the moment. There's a lot of people are actually at home, online, looking at jobs. So that's a growing trend. So you've got to stand out from the rest. Now, how do you do that? So, as I mentioned before, you would have to probably make sure you've got a very succinct CV, 2 pages. Don't make it any longer than 2 pages. Be very sort of concise, use bullet points, sort of, but not completely. Just sort of break it up so that you've got all the relevant information in, but including your hobbies and interests as well, because it gives a sort of a good feel for sort of like your interest outside of the workplace, and whether you're sporty, whether you like sort of team sports, or whether you're involved in and even whether you like volunteering or anything like that. All those things are important. And as mentioned about the job thing as well, in terms of whatever job you might have had in sort of to supplement your graduate income, sort of those things are actually relevant. But even work experience that you might have had as part of your course, perfect, obviously to make you stand out. But I think you also might want to think about, we use psychometrics. I think Sarah mentioned about sort of doing, when she was actually being recruited, we had assessment centres running then, and also ran psychometric testing. With COVID, that's just right, was really challenging to sort of even think about that. We want, I love assessment centres and all that lot, but we've had to really change our approach, and I think other companies have as well. And so you'll probably find a lot more on online testing that now is more of a bit of a reliance on that to sort of filter candidates too. So what we've used is this year is a product called HireView. And HireView is a video interview process. So and it's interlinked with tests and gaming, and so the experience for you to sort of expect there would be that we would certainly long list first. We wouldn't put everyone through that. We'd probably long list and shortlist, and put the shortlist through a HireView screening. And it's the next best thing to an assessment centre at the moment, in terms of I know it's sort of, you're not in the same room as the group in the good old days in assessment centres, but it's quite a common sort of practice now. Other companies will also be having a similar approach. So you might want to sort of practice online tests. Go on the internet and just start to sort of like get a feel of what that looks like. Is my suggestion. I think I've just got looking at a crib list here in terms of mentioning that. But yeah, we've basically we changed the process that we work to, but it doesn't mean that at the end of the day, once we've actually looked at the results of the HireView assessment, we'll actually then have a face-to-face interview. Because if we're actually offering you a job of employment, one, you want to go to the place of work ideally and meet who would be your managers, and discuss and have a proper conversation. So but we saved that for the final stage, and it's usually one-on-one because of COVID at the moment. We don't know what's going to happen next year, but it's quite likely we'll follow the same process next year.
Perfect. Thank you, Jackie. And yeah, if you want any information on virtual assessment centres and everything else, make sure you get onto the Career Centre as well. And we've got lots of different employers from loads of different perspectives giving their hints and tips on there. So make sure you go and have a look. So yeah, thank you everybody for joining us today. It's been really insightful. I hope everybody's found it as interesting as Jessica and I have. Next week I am taking a break, everyone. I am going to, I know, can you believe it? I'm going to watch the webinar from a student's point of view. Yes, I get to sleep on a Wednesday night. And it is with Jessica and Surf, and they are going to be having an interview with the RAF. So the famous Royal Air Force. So join Jess and Surf next week, same time, same place. And I'll be back the week after with Johnson Matthew. So thanks everybody, and I'll see you again soon.
Bye everyone.
Bye.
Bye,
Bye.
everyone.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.